think that there are certain teams that would be the 49ers would be more or less willing to trade Brandon Aiyuk to? Obviously, a team
I
with
would
a
say
first round
NFC
pick.
teams. I
NFC
would say
teams.
most NFC teams, because that's your direct competition. Chiefs, you would only play them once a year if you made the
I
Super
don't want
Bowl,
to give
if
the
they
Chiefs
made the Super
anything,
Bowl.
Steph.
I know, but like at the same time, if they're giving you what you asked for, which is probably going to be a first and some change, then I mean, although their first is pick 32nd, that doesn't mean much. So for the Chiefs, it'd probably be
you'd
need to
need
be
like
more.
You need a first, and the 49ers probably want like a first and a second in that case, and they're not going to get that.
I don't think the Chiefs are even positioned to make that trade, honestly, just given
What
where
I want
they're
to can you think of any teams that would be like maybe I'm trying to think of like teams that are like in the middle, you know what I mean? Because higher round picks, they're not going to give theirs away. But I can also I'm going to read Gammon Brown's. Hi, Gammon Brown. I feel like I see him and I listen to all the shows.
Yeah, man. Shout out Gammon, man.
Yeah.
Shout out Gammon.
But he says if Ayuk is getting enough targets, it's because if Ayuk is getting enough targets, it's because Brock isn't targeting him enough. Shanahan calls plays. Brock Purdy finds the open receiver. I think he means isn't getting enough targets, right?
Yeah.
So if Ayuk isn't getting enough targets, it's because Brock isn't targeting him. I kind of disagree with this. There's been plenty of times, like I know Rich Madrid, he put up a really good thread in the Super Bowl because people were kind of asking, like, with the playoffs, like I just said, throughout the entire playoffs and in the Super Bowl, Brandon Aiyuk had 3 catches in each game. There was plenty of times that Brandon Aiyuk was getting open, but according to Ayuk, Kyle Shanahan, and Brock Purdy himself, a lot of times Ayuk is like the third guy in the progression. So Brock Purdy just doesn't get there. And I don't necessarily put that on him. By that time, the pocket can be breaking down if he's looking left and Brandon Aiyuk is on the right, or if it's supposed to be a shorter route. Ayuk has, when he went on Eric Armstead's podcast, he said a lot of times I'm kind of doing like a clear out route type of thing. And I actually feel more confident now that Brock Purdy is my quarterback, because if there is an option to throw the ball down the field, Brock is taking that opportunity. But I mean, it does require there to be like an extra second in the pocket for Brock to notice that. When Brandon isn't the first target, and a lot of times he's not.
Which is why I think we saw a decline in Ayuk's targets in the playoffs, because teams were putting more pressure
getting there faster. I like that.
Yeah, on Purdy, and there was less time to get the ball out. So if Aiyuk is the third, guy in the progression, he's not going to get the ball very often. He's not getting the time. If Purdy's not getting the time to throw, like that's just the fact. So yeah, it's a little like should then Ayuk be the first guy, one of the first guys in the progression? I don't know. It depends on the play, right? And I think a lot of Ayuk's routes, or where he's set up to go, usually a little further downfield. He's not like a check down, guy. I'm sure they can do that, but usually your check down is the Christian McCaffrey. I saw like in a few instances in the Super Bowl, it was George Kittle, so just I think just with the role that the 49ers have Ayuk, not giving Purdy enough time is kind of what hurt like Ayuk's opportunities down the stretch.
Which is why one of those first round picks might be helpful. I mean, I know they're going to be targeting.
That is why we keep saying, like, look, Brock Purdy was able to do what he was able to do this season despite, his offensive line. Like, that's
were you
really
watch JT O'Sullivan's breakdown of Brock Purdy? It was an hour and 8 minutes long. So
I didn't. I haven't found.
It's like I felt like enough pain. Why are we doing?
Yeah, no, really. Because I told myself
I can tell you what everything was just like the pocket was breaking down. Basically,
I mean,
it was like 40 minutes out of the hour was that. Yeah. It was. I feel like, I don't know. I was when I saw him breaking it down, I felt a lot more impressed with Brock Purdy than I did prior. Not that I didn't like, I thought that I think I gave him a B right after the game. Like, I didn't think he did anything so impressive, but I wasn't disappointed with him. Like, I thought it was a pretty average game. I was like, yeah, we've seen him play better. When I saw how quickly and deceptive they were being with their blitzes, really hiding them, scheming Brock Purdy, like transitioning at the snap of the ball and just sitting in his lap. A lot of plays breaking down where Brock Purdy was, just sliding out to his left a little bit, sliding out to the right, escape, avoiding pressure, even if it was just for a second, just to get the ball out to, as we're talking about, this is what kind of takes Brandon Aiyuk away. Not him. It wasn't that he's getting open, but that it's, Brock Purdy has someone in his face in 2 seconds. So he's throwing the ball to like the guy that's closest to him, basically.
Right. Yep.
I still saying all that, have a really hard time thinking, like, I can understand the case maybe against Brandon Aiyuk staying, but when I think of, teams kind of want to incentivize guys to play really hard for them. They want to incentivize guys to come to their team. Brandon Aiyuk, in my opinion, is such a like quintessential 49er. He has really like embodied the physicality, the energy. Like, he is someone who I think we've always talked about throughout the season and previous seasons as well, like his consistency. I know previously we've just because they're both wide receivers on the team, compared him to Deebo Samuel, who I do think has a little bit more of the bigger play ability, at least on this team, and the ability to take over games. But like, if Deebo Samuel does that for, 4 games out of the year, Brandon Aiyuk seems to be like consistent every single game. Like, there's never a game where he seems super off. I mean, I don't want to be saying never, but like, I find Brandon Aiyuk to be maybe like the most stable force on this offense. Also, just like, he's stayed healthy throughout his years, overcoming, everyone likes to bring it up, but that doghouse situation. They drafted him in the first round, and I still feel like he's kind of exceeded expectations. So it does feel like, I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but like bad mojo to be, trading away a guy who has been so great for your organization that's like homegrown in that way. Like, is that bad karma? Like, do you believe in something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people thought it was bad karma when the 49ers traded away DeForest Buckner, right? And they were like, oh, when they drafted Kinlaw, Kinlaw dealt with a lot of injuries early on in his career, even up till last season, right? So you can say that was the results of bad karma if you want. I know some people would definitely say that. Yeah, I mean, I think the 49ers have to want Brandon Aiyuk in the building. I mean, he's the kind of guy I think you can build around. The fact that the offense is more, I think, pass friendly with Brock Purdy, I think that also incentivizes the 49ers wanting to keep Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, you're right. Like, and this is the first kind of full year with that. We've seen like how much progression they've done so far, and this is the year 1. You assume after a whole season with your with a healthy elbow that they're going to be doing even more of that.
Yeah, for sure. And then
Corey's, I just saw the super chat from Corey. Thank you so much, Corey. And then he says, not complaining, Lance and Purdy, but I think not comparing Lance and Purdy, but I think BA was excited about TL because he brought the dynamic that they might have gotten that kind of dude. I think he wants to be in that kind of system and dynamic. BP is good, but not that good. Maybe at first, but I think actually the Purdy and this is, my speculation, but I think the Purdy and Aiyuk connection really flourished. Like I said, I go back to that interview that Brandon Aiyuk did on Eric Armstead's podcast, and he really pointed out that he felt like Brock Purdy is completely willing to throw the ball down the field, and that he really does have to stay more vigilant than he ever did when he was in the system with like a guy like Jimmy G, which might be, what people anticipate from Purdy just based on like draft and his, physical build. But at least I'm hearing Brandon Aiyuk talk about it, maybe in the beginning, but I do think now he feels like Brock Purdy is very open to that. Now, maybe you're talking about the system that Shanahan would have had to change to like utilize Trey Lance's talents more, which was throwing the ball down the field more. But to me, that's once again that's more of like a scheme system thing that Kyle Shanahan can adjust, because I don't think that there's anything that Purdy can't do right now that Brandon Aiyuk would be after. Like, I think they could throw down the field more and could target Ayuk more if they wanted to. I don't think that that's how like Shanahan likes to call his system, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, and like Corey says, like he's not comparing Lance and Purdy. I think the comparison is more with Jimmy Garoppolo and Lance, because that was like all of the experience that Brandon Aiyuk had to that point when Trey Lance came in, and you see Trey Lance and his skill set, and you think, hey, like this is a guy who can get me the ball probably a little bit better than Jimmy Garoppolo, or would be more willing to give me the ball more than Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, Trey Lance and Brandon Aiyuk did have, a tight relationship. And I think we saw that Brock Purdy and Ayuk's, like you said, their relationship did flourish as well. And their chemistry on the field really took off this year. And you got to remember, that's with Brock Purdy not even having an offseason, really, and barely joining the team a little bit in OTAs and training camp, but he didn't have an opportunity to say like, hey, like, let's train together, Ayuk. Like, let's get our rapport
like he
going.
did all this,
Yeah,
I think he wasn't even around in the very beginning of the off season workout program.
So, we'll see what that looks like this off season. It'll be interesting. I mean, because yes, Ayuk is, negotiating a contract this offseason, but he has his 5th-year option already, pretty much. So, Brock Purdy and Brandon Aiyuk could still train together this offseason, and it's not like it'd be awkward or anything because Aiyuk is waiting for his contract. But yeah, I mean, I think there's still even a bigger opportunity for those two to
bond
really
and grow their
grow.
connection.